Like I've said before, you could spend all your dollars on ads and try to figure out a better Instagram strategy, social media strategy. You can revamp your products and services, or you could increase the conversion rate of the traffic and the audience that you already have. Because to be honest, otherwise, why would you be so obsessed with all these shiny different marketing strategies that you could be doing and you probably should be doing, but not at the expense of that thing at the very base layer, your engine, your website, if that's not revved up and working at its max capacity. If you're just tuning in, this is part 2 of a 2-part website optimization tip video series for creative entrepreneurs like you. You can check out the previous episode right here and also at the link in the description box below. This little series is dedicated to answering all the DMs and the questions that I've gotten just to truly help you right now stay in this small business game. I know there is a lot of market volatility going on and a lot of economic certainty, and I want you to stay in this fight. I have a big heart for small business and I'm ready to fight for this. Click that like button below if likewise you are ready to dig in, maybe get a little bit scrappy and pivot as needed in order to stay in all of this despite extreme economic uncertainty. We can face these challenges together. In order to stay tuned with all the videos that I'm going to pump out in the coming weeks, all about helping you sell more, then make sure you look down below, hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it. I put out videos every Tuesday, and then Thursday for the coming weeks I'm doing a quick interview series where I interview an expert that I've got some questions for, and I just let you tune in. Stay in the loop for those, and let's dive into how you can up your website conversions. And pause, if this concept is new to you, then make sure that you open this video in a tab so you can watch it. I dive into a little bit more the math behind what a conversion is and how you measure that. Number 1, the first thing you want to do is pass what I'm going to call the front door test. Does your website pass these 2 checkpoints? Is it clear and is it familiar? So quick story, I love the Show It 5 platform. It's what my website is built on. Whenever I'm describing it to people as an alternative to something like Squarespace or WordPress, I always say if you know enough to be dangerous inside any of Adobe's products like Photoshop or InDesign, then you're gonna be fine in Show It because it feels very same as far as the interface goes. It's familiar, and that brings up this important point: familiarity breeds conversion. Google ran a study that involved about 119 different screenshots, and this is what they found. Low visual complexity, aka clear, simple, not super cluttered, and high familiarity, aka that website seems similar to things that we'd seen before. Those are the things that people like most when they are interacting to a website that's new to them. I'm no neuroscientist, but if you're like me, maybe you've also noticed that our brains are a little bit lazy sometimes, and we do tend to trust the familiar. We like our comfort food. We tend to hang out with, date, and even marry people who have some of the same things in common with us. We like our social media websites to look like social media websites. We like our news websites to look like news websites. We like our e-commerce to look like e-commerce. But what does this mean for you? Well, before I tell you the tactic, I want you to hit pause on this video, go over to your website, and you tell me this. What is the visual hierarchy of your website telling me that the number 1 thing is I need to focus on when I go to your website? If you pull up your site, what looks like it's the most important thing? And is this what you want to be the most important thing? We want to choose website designs or templates, or if you're working one-on-one with a website designer, make sure that you're trying to figure out something that is somewhat in the vein of what that person would be used to coming to your website. This is why I love recommending my friends Jen and Jeff at Tonic Site Shop, because they specifically know the creative market, the creative niche. So if that is you, I'll link it down below, but it's a great place to look around because, again, they're creating everything in the vein of people that are shopping and are used to this kind of user experience that they'll get on a website that's created by Tonic. Remember at the beginning of this, step number 1, I said clear and familiar. So I just talked about familiar. The next thing you want to do is clear the clutter. I know it's so fun to have beautiful design and all these added elements, but make sure that you're boiling it down to truly what is necessary. Like I said in that last video, we can't let your website die on any hill up, but I just wanted it to be really, really pretty. I've got more than 6,000 creative entrepreneurs in my programs, and if there's anything I've learned about the niche I work in that I love so much, it is that we are so strong typically in the visual branding side of things, and I think that's a good thing. But have you cleared the clutter? Tip number 2 is to declare what I call your onlyness factor. So you've seen Shark Tank, right? The entrepreneur walks into the room with the sharks, and they typically have 2 things in their back pocket: their elevator pitch, so why they do what they do, and their numbers. Just like them, these are the 2 things that we need to know as the CEOs of our creative businesses. So back to that elevator pitch. You want to make sure that you can tell me this. Why do you do what you do the way you do it differently or better than somebody else that does the same thing that you, or somebody that does the same thing and even charges less than you? I know that's a mouthful. If you've ever heard me speak live, or if you're in any of my programs, you've heard me say this, but it's so paramount that you be able to figure out this unique value proposition, unique selling proposition, whatever you want to call it. I like to give my students a whole formula to figure that out, but if you're new to the concept, these are the 3 things I want you to be able to tell me. Can you explain to me how your product solves your customer or your client's problems or improves their situation? Can you tell me why this benefits me? And can you tell me why I need to buy from you and not somebody else? Why are you different? Your onlyness factor is not your slogan, okay? I'm not talking about that. I even mentioned in a video one time before, don't worry so much about your slogan or your tagline or whatever. This is way more important. This is also a piece of messaging that's laced into all of your overall branding and your website and everything that you do. So to use a quick analogy, if you've watched the show Fixer Upper before, we're talking about demo day. We're stripping it down to the studs. Once this is all in place, then we can start to put the pretty things on top of that, like the design elements, the shiplap, the chandeliers, that kind of thing. So can you pass this front door test? It takes about 2.6 seconds for your brand new user when they land on your website to figure out what is most important. So are you directing them to the precise thing you want them to focus on by using a familiar-ish layout or blueprint and also being super clear? Tip number 3, collect qualitative research. My student Karina was able to up her customer survey response rate by 191%. What? Amazing, but what was even better was that she was able to turn around and create 4 new products that her customers wanted because they told her that they wanted it. How'd she do that? By listening. Sometimes the very best conversion tools are free, just using your ears. So if you've been around my channel for a while, you know I like quantitative data. I love to be able to measure things and make data-driven decisions for any copywriting that I'm doing. That's things like numbers, stats, bounce rates, and finding that conversion rate. That's the metric I mentioned before, and the math that goes into that. But qualitative data is more the why behind those numbers. It tells us attitudes, motivations, the reasons that people are making these decisions. So tactic time, a fun way to start to figure this out is to use a website session feedback and recording tool. I'm gonna link another video I did up here and below where I show you how to run a user test experiment. Go to the 11-minute timestamp to start watching where I do that. Like the saying goes, assuming tends to make a of you and me. Which brings me to tip number 4, make your copy skimmable. I shared once with my email subscribers, but I was bellied up to a bar with a client and her husband. They were so great. They're a dream couple to work with, and the husband said this. He said, Ashlyn, I wasn't so sure about this whole long form sales page thing. I'd written them a 5,000 word sales page. He said, I didn't think we needed all of that, but you told us on a late night call that we were gonna need all of that because right before midnight when we closed cart, people were going to be hemming and hawing over these very things, reading every single word. Well, sure enough, he was in the chat and they had a lot of people make that decision last minute. Tests have shown that about 79% of people skim a website, but there are 16% that are reading every single word. So you're gonna wanna make sure that your copy is 100% scannable. Use short sentences, paragraphs, use bold, use italic to draw people's eyes towards what they need to be reading. Make sure you're using your headlines and your subheads really well. Those are so important. And you also wanna make sure that your images actually reflect what the copy's trying to say. One last tip that kind of goes along with this, it is okay to continue to repeat the same sorts of words and phrases over and over again. And it's not from an SEO standpoint, but just from an information retention standpoint with your user. I've definitely had students before say, can I say this on this page? I literally just said that on my homepage or on my about page. Yes, you absolutely can. You need to be reiterating these things for your people so they can start to understand them. Remember, you're on your website all the time. Your user is not. So if this is their first pass at it, they need to make sure that they're hearing things over and over again. Now, there's no magic blanket fix or formula that is just going to instantly fix all your conversions. A lot of this is trial and error. And as I say, best practices are just pulled ignorance. You need to lean on the data. The data will tell you what to do. For every best practice you can show me that worked, I can show you one that did not work. So let's drill this down. I want you to pull out your planner, pick one of these things that I've mentioned today, and carve out a little 30-minute time slot in your social distancing calendar to tackle one of them. It could be as easy as seeing if your website passes that front door test I talked about in tip number 1. If you want a few more gut check questions to make sure your website passes classes, then look down below and grab my free checklist of 44 questions your website must answer. Use that. It has served so many people, and I hope it does you as well. Shout out to Marty, who made me smile recently with this comment. If you want a shout out in an upcoming video, just comment below your biggest takeaway from today. I promise no matter where you are in your journey as a creative entrepreneur, you are capable of making these little changes. So make sure you watch this next video I have teed up for you, where I'm walking you through 7 more website do's and don'ts. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.